Okay, we're recording.
All right, I guess I'll take it away unless the mayor wants to get started with anything.
No, thank you, John. Go ahead.
All right. Well, thanks for taking this meeting. This is a meeting just to kind of talk about one of the main things that we do in planning is, enforce the city rules. And one thing that comes up all the time, not all the time, every once in a while, is non-conforming uses. So I hope you had a chance to read the memo and hope you didn't get confused by the typo in the original one that I sent out. Non-conforming uses are uses that exist in the city that were there before there was some sort of zoning code. So you might see a house in the industrial zone or a duplex in a single family residential zone, or those kinds of things, substandard lots. And what other examples did I give? I gave buildings that don't meet current setback requirements, commercial uses in buildings that are in a residential zone. Like I said, the buildings with 3 or more units in the R7 or the R5 zone, duplexes in the R5 zone, which is our single family residential only zone. Or single family houses in the commercial zones. So the way we treat those is they're there, they're fine. This little section of code in the memo addresses them quite concisely and says, legal non-conforming uses and structures shall not be enlarged, altered, or expanded unless you get a conditional use permit. Legal non-conforming use shall lose its status as a legal non-conforming use if abandoned for 6 months or more. Legal non-conforming structures may be maintained and repaired unless destroyed or damaged so as to have their fair market value reduced by 75% or more, in which case they shall lose their non-conforming status. And that's kind of it. Then the rest is, like how you deal with these issues. And it works pretty well. The idea is, we want to protect these non-conforming uses. They've been there and there's no reason to get rid of them. But if somebody wanted to build a use like that in that current zone, it wouldn't be allowed. And that's just using our basic zoning principles. Is we have zoning to make sure that things go into each area as the city vision and the city council's vision. So, we put commercial in commercial zones, we put residential in residential zones. So it's our basic policing power under the zoning. However, we don't want these things we don't want existing non-conforming uses to continue forever and ever. I mean, like I've said before, city has the luxury of patience. We get to, if it's there, we don't worry about it. But if it were to go away, we don't want to allow them to come back because that's not part of the city's vision. And in here, you're allowed to expand, or you're allowed to expand or enlarge a non-conforming use if you get a conditional use permit, but you're not allowed to rebuild if it were to go away through a conditional use permit. So why am I talking to you about this? This is, basic nuts and bolts stuff that we're trying to do the city council's work of protecting the city vision. And what happens every once in a while is someone will come in and say, hey, I've got a residential house in the commercial zone and I'm trying to get a loan on it or trying to sell it, and people can't get a loan on a house like that because if it were to burn down, nobody would be able to they wouldn't be able to rebuild it. So people don't want to banks don't want to give a loan on a building that isn't going to be able to be rebuilt in its current status. And that's kind of an interesting thing that the banks do, because sometimes in the case of a commercial property, if a building burns down, they can rebuild with something even more valuable in a commercial zone. But that's not what the bank's loaning on, so that's not what they're interested in. So it causes some issues sometimes with people getting loans. And I bring this up with the council because when people don't get their way at the planning department, we say, well, I can't write a letter saying that we'll let you rebuild it because that would be, I don't have the authority to do so. Nikki would not like that at all. It puts the city at tremendous risk, basically saying, yeah, here's a letter, ignore our zoning rules, we'll allow you to do whatever. So we don't do that. And then they occasionally will come to the city council and say, hey, you need to let me rebuild my house if it burns down in the unlikely event that it burns down, so I can get a loan. And it's very, we understand that when people are trying to get a loan or, refinance their house or sell a house, we want to make that process work for them. We're here to serve the people that live in the city, but only to a certain extent. So wanted to talk to the council about non-conforming uses, and in particular, if you looked at your email today, they included a letter from somebody who is, he's trying to get a reverse mortgage, and because he's got a non-conforming use, his example is he's got a duplex in the R7 zone, but his lot is too small to build a duplex if it were to be damaged or destroyed more than 75%. In the R7 zone, you need 9,000 square feet to build a duplex. He has like 4,000 square feet, or maybe a little bit more than that, but not close to the required 9,000. So if it were to burn down, he wouldn't be able to rebuild, and that's a hardship for him. We understand that. We're sensitive to that. So what we always do is we try to find solutions for people, but not every problem has a solution that the planning department can help them with. In this case, we looked at, we said, so you've got a duplex. It's really a single family house that was converted to 2 units at one point. So how about we call it an ADU, single family residence with an ADU, and then you can get a loan on that, and, problem solved. But he doesn't like that solution because he wants a duplex, not a single family with an ADU. He feels it's more valuable that way. In this case, we gave him an option. He didn't like the option, and so you're likely to hear from him. I think Chuck, you may have already heard from him back several months ago, and I've been working with him ever since, trying to find a solution. And we thought we found a fairly eloquent solution for his situation, but that's not the road that he wants to take. So, what he's probably going to come to the council and say, hey, why don't you change your city rules to allow me to have a duplex in this residential zone? From the planning perspective, we're not super excited about changing our rules to accommodate one person's goals, as much as we desperately try to help property owners and solve their problems for them. This would be a case of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. If we change our zoning rules and say you can rebuild a non-conforming use if it were to be destroyed, we're undermining the purpose and intent of the zoning rules that the city council has enacted. Council, I think in the past, and I've talked to this council a bit about it, has wanted to, keep single family residential zones single family. I haven't seen a strong feeling from this council that we should be doing things like shrinking the size of lots to, say allow a duplex on a smaller lot. I mean, that could be a solution for this one case, but it brings in the overall idea of, like, do we want to increase densities in our residential zones, which the council's kind of mulled around that issue a little bit recently and hasn't, I didn't get a strong sense that that was the direction that the council wanted to go. So that's really all I wanted to talk to the council about, and I wanted to get a sense for, the way our non-conforming code is written. It's a couple of paragraphs, and it's pretty simple. If you're comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it. Other cities have lengthy, detailed ones that has its merits and drawbacks. If the council wanted to look at further changes to the legal non-conforming, that's your prerogative. We're not recommending any. There's always room for improvement in any code, but we're not seeing a strong need for it. I mostly wanted to bring this issue to the council and let you know that some of the things that people will say about the loan part of their of when the, how being a non-conforming property or structure affects their abilities to get loans, which I know that you would be sympathetic to and we're sympathetic to, but it's an issue that I don't know that we can address with any great solutions. So I should stop talking and see if the council has any input on this.
John, I think this is something that should go back to the planning commission and let them work this thing out, and then you can bring it to the council later. I know the property you're talking about on Ball, and to me, it looks like it's even too small for a house. It's very narrow. So I think the guy probably understands. I hope so. He hasn't called me lately, so it must be okay. So, we, this small commission, we could recommend changes, but I don't think we really understand, it looks good the way it's written to me, but I think it would be good for the planning commission. As you know, I used to be on that commission, and they really fine tune things. They go over and over, and that would be my recommendation. It goes to the planning commission, let them work this thing out.
John,
Yeah.
I tend to agree with Chuck. I don't think we should recommend changing the code and so forth based on one specific thing that's going on. I definitely sympathize with this person, and I feel for them, but I don't think the code should be changed based on one particular person's need. I think we need to get through COVID basically before we start changing codes along that line and see where things are heading in the future, because everybody's having a hardship at this time. That's truth. But once we get through this, it may be the end of this year, it may be longer, I'm not sure, but that will kind of lay the pathway for the future and where the codes need to go. So I think we should just hold off a little bit. And yes, definitely take it back to the planning commission.
Yeah, so John, I just had a question on the procedure for this. So are we looking at this stage that we would send this to the full council to decide whether or not to send it to the planning commission? Or would it go straight from this committee to the planning commission?
Well, first, let me ask, are there any specific issues that the council wants the planning commission to work on? Because if the council, or if this committee at least, feels that the way it's written is adequate, then there's no need to take it to the planning commission. And if there's things that that this committee thinks the planning commission could work on, then you would make a recommendation to have the planning commission look at this issue. I'm not sure what changes the planning commission would make, because I haven't heard from this planning committee any directive. Maybe I heard loud and clear that we don't want to change this ordinance just to suit one person's specific needs, and I appreciate that, and I tend to agree. If there's anything specific that needs to be addressed, then I can bring that to the planning commission. Otherwise, if you're comfortable with this ordinance the way it is, let's save the planning commission some time, and we could just leave this as it is. But we could always bring it to the planning commission if you'd like us to.
I'm happy with it, John. I mean, it looked good to me, but I don't know your thoughts on it. What do you think? Are you happy with it?
I think it's fine. Yeah. There's no there. It's not an outlier from any other local jurisdictions or even any nationally. It's pretty standard. It has less details than others, but it's very easy to understand. It doesn't get too complicated. There's not too many exceptions to this and that. It works pretty clearly.
Well, I would make a motion to leave it like it is. It looks good to me. As far as it looks great.
I agree with Chuck. I think it's good as is. I would follow your recommendation, John, to not make any changes.
John,
Yes.
I agree at this time with the recommendations not to make any changes at this time. And I will have no say after tonight, but I hope that I hope that once COVID is over, and I'm sure you will, but I hope that once COVID is over, you'll look again at the big picture and see if there are any modifications that need to be made based on the needs of the general public.
Okay. So just a little housekeeping. We generally report to the council at large, the committee determination. Who would like to do that? So I don't want to step on anybody's toes.
John, I'll
No.
take that. Chair.
Okay.
I bet, however, before we do adjourn, I have another question.
Absolutely.
There was some discussion about signage for local businesses to try to bring business into our city. Has there been any further discussion on that matter?
Could you refresh my memory on what kind of signage? Are you talking about, like wayfinder signs or?
It's signs that direct traffic into the city. Or maybe they're not lighted signs, but I know it was brought to the planning commission.
Well, the planning commission has been working on electronic reader boards.
Okay, okay.
That's and they did make a recommendation at the last week. I was not able to get everything put together for tonight, March 24th's meeting, but I will be bringing the recommendation to the council at the April 14th meeting.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me.
I'd like to ask John a question. Are you there, John?
Go for it. Yeah,
Did you get your COVID shot yet?
I did.
Did it bother you?
Not at all.
Yeah, well, I'm getting mine Saturday. I drug my feet for a while, but I guess I'll go ahead and do it.
It was no different than, any shot in the arm. Like maybe like if you press on it, you'd be like, oh yeah, something happened there.
Is that your first or second, John?
That was my first.
Okay, well, please be prepared for your second.
That's what they say.
That's what
Fortunately,
It's real. It's real. We've been giving injections to hundreds of people up at Swing Clinic. And in fact, we're giving first injections to about 200 tomorrow at the casino, Swing Casino. So yeah, be prepared for your second shot. It is a little more brutal. It might put you down for a day. It really might. So go ahead and please expect that might happen.
That's a good place to get the shot, Brenda. It's a gamble.
Right, Jack. Oh, that's awesome.
well, thank you for the warning.
Yeah, no, take it seriously though. You might want to plan for a day off.
I will be ready.
Okay.
So that's all I had to bring to the council planning committee. If you don't have any more questions, that's all I have.
Hey, John, I'm gonna bring it back to the council that we have no changes to anything based on our discussion in the planning committee.
Okay, thank you very much.
See you
Right,
later.
thank you.
See you in a little bit.